Sumant Sinha, the founder, chairman and the managing director of ReNew Power, which is India's largest clean energy company, to address the audience.
Thank you so much. I think the audience deserves a round of applause here. They've been so patient. Well done. I didn't expect that until my turn would come that so many of you would still be here, so really I appreciate that from my side. To thank, I'd like to thank, of course, the Institute for having given me this award. I'd like to thank in particular the director, Dr. Anju Seth, the chairman, Shri Krishna Kulkarni, and of course all the faculty who were involved in the process, and also of course the faculty who were involved in teaching me while I was here, because that obviously made or must have had some difference, and over the years I'm sure it's helped. I'd also like to just get the formalities out of the way. I think one of the important people I'd like to thank in my life is, of course, my wife, who's not here. She's unfortunately had fever, so she couldn't fly down here to join me. And Vaishali, she's been the pillar of my life ever since I finished from IIM. I'd like to thank my parents for having given me the drive and the ambition to succeed. And of course the genes, most importantly. I think genes are very important. It gives you the basic skill sets and the abilities. So I'd like to thank my parents. And I think moving on a little bit from that part of what I wanted to say, you guys have sat here very patiently and listened to a lot of different stories from the distinguished alums who are sitting here, and they truly are distinguished. So not just because of the award, but truly they have accomplished a lot of great things in their careers. I did not expect, being from the 24th batch, that I'd be the baby of this group, which I'm surprised to see. In fact, one of them pointed that out. So, but it's been nevertheless 30 years since I finished my studies, my academic life here at the campus. And 30 years is actually a fairly long time. Not as long as 40 years, but certainly still a fairly long time with which you can look back on your life and your times and think about what you did right and what you did wrong. And I spent in my 30 years, I did 10 years of investment banking, where I was mostly outside of India. Then I came back to India because I had this desire to come back and do something for the country and be part of the growth story. And then I was for 10 years working in corporate India, mostly in Mumbai at that point in time. And then I decided to go off and do something on my own. And so I started this company, ReNew Power, about 10 years ago, about 9 years actually. And it's been a very, very interesting journey after that. But the reality is that every single part of life's journey is interesting. And I think the very important thing is that you have to really enjoy every part of what you do. And wherever you are and whatever you do, there is so much to learn, so many skills to pick up, so many people to meet, so many networks to make. I think wherever you are, you have to really treat that as a real opportunity to learn. And I think if nothing else, the one thing you should pick up from being here today and from having heard the stories of all these very distinguished people here is that whether you're in academics or whether you're in government service or whether you're in corporate service or whether you're an entrepreneur, there are so many different ways of making an impact. You can do so many different things with your life. And I think that's the central message, if there's one that you should take away from today. And since I'm the last speaker, I've taken the opportunity of summing up in some way in the day, is that you have to have the ability of making an impact in whatever you do in your life. And there are many ways of doing it, as we've heard. And I think therefore you have to in some ways think through what you want to do and which career you choose for yourself. I think it's fine. Just whatever you do, think about how you can have an impact on yourself, on people around you, and on society at large. Because I think it is very important as you go through your life's journey to leave something tangible behind. Otherwise, what else is there? It's one thing to make money, and we all want to make money because it's ultimately a path to a lot of good things and comfort in life, also recognition. But it's also very important to have an impact in society and in terms of what you do. And so that's something that you should really think about in whatever you do. And I'll give you a very small example or a small story that I picked up in my life. When I was at IIT, I went for a camping trip to Manali, trekking trip actually. And one early morning, we were staying in this tented facility, which was, in fact, there was a big debate in our group about whether we should stay in a proper hotel or in this camp. And the camp guys won out, although I was a more comfort-oriented hotel guy. But anyway, we were staying in this camp, and early morning at around 5 o'clock, they woke us up. And they said, we're going to go and climb a mountain today. We said, fine, let's go and climb a mountain. You know, at that age, you're still fairly young and you're enthusiastic and you don't mind doing these kinds of things. So we set out to climb the mountain. And when I looked up, I could see the peak of the mountain. And I said, oh, that's where we have to get to. And so we started climbing. And about an hour or 2 hours later of desperate climbing, we finally got to that point that I had seen from the bottom. And I thought I had reached the peak. But when we actually reached there, I saw that actually the peak was further ahead. But I could not see the real peak because that ridge that I was standing on, which I thought was the peak, was actually blocking my view from the ground. And so I said, oh my God, we have to climb a little bit more. So we climbed a little bit more and got to the next peak. And I realized exactly the same thing was happening. That too was actually not a peak. It was just another ridge, which was again obscuring your view of the future. And so that happened multiple times before we finally actually got to the top. And what I realized from there is that when you're standing at the ground level, which in some ways you guys are in your own lives as you finish your IIM degree here, and you start looking at the future of your career, you're not able to see where you might get to. So the point is set intermediate targets, and it's only when you set those intermediate targets do you actually get to see future opportunities that might arise. And so at every stage in your career, please stop, see what are the new vistas that have opened up because of the distance that you've now traversed in your life, and then take a decision of where else you want to get to. And so I realized that life is actually all about climbing. You just go from one peak to another, and you never truly get to the end point. You just keep climbing up and up and up. And so when I was recounting this story to one of my friends from IIT, who had not gone on this camping trip, he said, Sumant, you're such an idiot. Why did you keep climbing? You should have just turned around at any point in time, just sat there and enjoyed the view. Instead of which you kept being focused on the mountain and you kept climbing all your life. Why did you have to do that? So the point is that at every point in your journey, you will have those opportunities that will present themselves. And you will have to individually and personally take the decision of where and what you want to do with your life. So there are two things I'd just like to tell you. Number one, you've heard a lot about different people speaking about different career paths. The one that I would really recommend to you guys is please think about entrepreneurship. Because of all the things that I've done in my career, the one where I felt that I had the maximum impact, where you can create the most number of jobs, give people employment, contribute to society, I felt was entrepreneurship. It allows you to take ownership of what you have to do, and it allows you to create, again, impact, which is a very important, I think, thing to do. So think about entrepreneurship. You guys, as Ganesh said, have this incredible opportunity where you don't actually have to work necessarily to earn a living. And you, of course, have the fallback of having a good education, and so you'll always be able to find a job. So try to shoot for the stars. And I think if you do that, and again, that's one of the things that you heard today, if you do try to shoot for the stars, I think you will end up at least getting to the moon, which is probably not a bad thing to do. So the first thing is definitely look at opportunities in entrepreneurship to have impact in your lives. The second thing I would say is, one of the things that is very important, at least in my life today, is the issue of sustainability and climate change. And the reason I'm talking about that is because it is one of the most defining challenges for mankind today. We have only literally about 20-25 years within which, if we don't get to control all the carbon emissions that are going on, it is going to lead to massive changes. And if I can give you one very quick piece of advice, there are many ways in which all of us can individually have impact on sustainability. For example, do not use single-use plastics. Number two, keep temperatures within buildings higher because you can conserve energy. That's terrific. So 1 degree increase in temperature allows you to save 6% of energy. So there are various ways in which all of us individually can make contributions in this area. And so I know it's not something that you guys are thinking about very deeply right now, but do spend a minute about it, because I think, as I said earlier, it is one of the most important challenges that we as humanity are facing, and it is very important for all of us to do our bit, whether it is directly in jobs or whether it is individually in our own personal lives. With that, thank you very much again. Thank you to the Institute. Thank you for being such a patient audience. You've had a lot of philosophy that has been coming at you the whole evening today. Thank you for being patient and listening to all of us. Thank you.